Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening. Tonight, the question is, how do we stand in a society when there's sort of all kinds of stuff going on, not only in society, but in the world, that are very difficult and cause a lot of suffering? How do we stand in that and not get drowned in it or not get lost in it? That's the question tonight.
And here is the gospel according to Luke. While some people were speaking about how the temple was adorned with costly stones and votive offerings, Jesus said, "All that you see here, the days will come, there will not be left a stone upon another stone that will not be thrown down." Then they asked him, "Teacher, when will this happen? And what sign will there be when all these things are about to happen?" He answered, "See that you not be deceived, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am he,' and the time has come. Do not follow them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for such things must happen first, but it will not immediately be the end." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be powerful earthquakes, famines, and plagues from place to place, and awesome sights and mighty signs will come from the sky. Before all this happens, however, they will seize and persecute you. They will hand you over to the synagogues and to prisons, and they will have you led before kings and governors because of my name. It will lead to your giving testimony. Remember, you are not to prepare your defense beforehand, for I myself shall give you a wisdom in speaking that all your adversaries will be powerless to resist or refute. You will even be handed over by parents, brothers, relatives, and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair on your head will be destroyed. By your perseverance, you will secure your lives." So Father Tom and I decided we would both put in our 2 cents in regard to this gospel. I spent a lot of time with it this week, and at face value, what it seems to be talking about are the end times, meaning when God is going to send down fire and brimstone to the earth to put an end to the whole mess. And then it says on top of it that in the midst of all of this, you're going to be persecuted. And so it's natural to say, well, what is this about? Where's the God of mercy and compassion in all of this? What does this mean? So after I sat with this for a while, what struck me is that when we're talking here about nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdom, insurrections, earthquakes, famines, plagues, it's so easy to say, well, yeah, that's where we are right now. I guess the end is near. Except that if you step back and look at it, this has been a condition that every generation has experienced. If you just think about our parents, our grandparents, a couple generations back, you could have said during World War I, look, we're here, it's the end times. World War II, the same thing. Vietnam, the same thing. Present day, we've got wars in the Middle East that seem to never end. And just most recently, we've got insurrections and we've got situations where family members are against family members. I can imagine that many of you are thinking ahead to Thanksgiving, sitting around the table with a family that's politically divided, and very easily imagine feeling persecuted. The other thing that occurs to me is that none of these things that each generation has experienced, none of the things mentioned here were sent by God. They were created by humanity. We create our own hell in every generation. And then when you say to yourself, well, what about this persecution part? Think about it. The prophetic voices in every generation. So in our lifetimes, most of us, we can think about people like the Berrigans, Martin Luther King. We know all about Gandhi. These are the people that stood up and stood against the very types of conflicts and hell that we as a culture create. We can talk about the climate issues now that are created by our cultures, our societies, our humanity. And these kinds of prophetic voices, Greta Thunberg is another, right, that stand up and talk about it, always get persecuted. And I think what this gospel is saying is when these conditions come about or are brought about by your generation, you're called to be the prophetic voice against it, to stand against it. And when you do, you are going to be persecuted. That's the cost of discipleship. The question we have to ask ourselves is, are we ready to accept that cost? And that's my take on the gospel. And now we're going to hear from Father Tom.
Jesus said one time, was your house built on sand or is it built on rock? He said if it's built on sand, when the weather and the winds and the rain and everything comes against it, the floods, you're going to be washed away. And when he says it's built on rock, it'll be able to stand the heat of whatever's coming its way. So that's the question to really think about. My home, my personhood, my body, what is it built on? What have we actively sought to root who we are in? Is the question that every generation has to wrestle with, deal with, And maybe we create these situations in society and in the world in order to what? In order to basically say, how can we deal with life when it's not just going our way, but when we have to deal with it in ways that are most difficult? And so what we have to wrestle with and look at very simply is, do I really trust God? Do I really trust Him? Do I really believe that He is within me? He's for me. He's going to be my rock. He's going to be my strength. He's going to help me deal with whatever's going on in life. It is what it is, as Barbara so beautifully described. Every generation has to go through it. So this time is a time of testing us, which is saying, do I really believe that God truly is with me and for me and in me so that I can be in that situation and stand in it and be a voice in it, as Barbara said, a prophetic voice to say, people, there's another way of relating to life. People, the essence and purpose of life is not hassling each other back and forth, but trying to deal with love, trying to deal with how do we come together. And so every generation has to deal with it. And the reason why, very simply, is your parents can't give you your faith. Your parents can't give you your trust. I'm going to have to wrestle with it and struggle with it. And there are times we're going to trust our God, but other times when things get really bad or going, we're not going to trust Him. We might get angry at Him. We might do all kinds of things with Him, saying, I'm screaming out to you, and you're not really going with me or for me. So every generation has to recognize the fact that everything is broken. Everything is broken. Everything around us is broken. And we like to be able to say, hey, everything is nice, and that's the American way. Everything is nice. And the more resources you have, you're saying it more often. Everything has to be nice. My dear brothers and sisters, the world is broken at its core. So whom are you going to trust? Yourself? To try to stand in it? I'm going to beat this. I'm going to be in charge. I'm going to do this. Or are you going to basically trust God and say, Lord, I know you're going to be with me, even though it's going to be a very difficult time and a very difficult situation. And I'm going to be probably hurt in some ways if I begin to speak the truth to power and to all that's going on. So this is what the gospel is saying to us. How well do you trust your God? Do you really trust him? Or do you trust him on your terms? Thank you.